Hey, this is Mr. Mitchell. Let's talk a little bit about the story of an hour. Have some literary analysis on this. On your Google Classroom account, you have a doc where you take notes on our literary analysis of the story of an hour. So on that doc, you'll see that number one says feminism is the fight for equality of genders. Why is this story in the category of feminism literature? So, as one analyzes this story, you get the feeling that there was more than just a crazy tale about a widowed wife. The author leaves clues that the standard relationship of the time did not show equality for women. And one of the first clues is right in the opening sentence. It said, this is one of the biggest things ever of Miss Mallard's life, and we are not given Miss Mallard's first name. In fact, I think only one time toward the end of the play, toward the end of this short story, is it even mentioned by her sister what her first name is. I think it's Louise. But she is known as Mrs. Mallard all the way up until that point, as if she didn't have an identity without her husband. And in fact, she's carrying her husband's name, Mallard, right here. So I think that is not just an oversight by putting her first name in. I think that has to be kind of pointing out that she didn't get a chance to be her own self until she got in front of the window and realized her husband appeared to be dead. There's another clue later on. I have notations on my little parts here. The part I'm looking for is repression. Here it is. Okay, it says, she was young, was fair, calm face, whose lines bespoke repression. The word repression means that they are repressed, they are pushed down, they are not allowed to be themselves, they're not their own selves. They have to rely upon someone else. They are pushed down. And it showed a certain strength, the fact that she was repressed, what you saw in the lines of her face. Next thing that I see is no one to live for in the coming years, and that's going to be here. There would be no one to live for during these coming years. That is hinting, she's looking outside the window and she realizes she doesn't have to live for her husband. Why would the author put that there would be no one to live for in these coming years if there wasn't a meaning behind it? And it continues, there would be no powerful will bending hers. In that blind persistence in which men and women believe they have the right to impose a private will upon a fellow creature. So this is saying in relationships, there is will bending. One of the people in the relationship gets their way because they're in a relationship, and they can do that. And it mentions that here. Now, it does say that women do this also, that men and women both believe they have the right to impose their will. But look at the other clues. I mean, here she isn't even given her first name. Says that there was no one for her to live for. Says that there was repression. So you have to think that a lot of the will bending was her husband, and that of the times, the will bending often was the husband forcing the wife to not be herself, to live for them. And you wonder if this applies today. Is that how relationships are today? Oh, pardon me, I'm at school. The bell is ringing. So the next question has to be with, do they love each other? So let's take a look. I have some notations. And I think the first one will be, she knew she would cry when seeing his hands, his face, and I have it in circles, and I can't seem to find it. Oh, yes, here it is. Now, she was looking out the window, and she said she knew that she would weep again when she saw the kind, tender hands folded in death. Whenever she saw him in the casket, she knew she would weep again and think about him. But notice how it turns. The face that had never looked save upon love upon her, fixed and gray and dead. It goes from, oh, she knows she'll be sad and she'll miss him, but after all, he's gray and dead. Let it go. So you kind of get a hint here that even though she's crying because she's supposed to cry, that the death of her husband does mean a new life for her. I do have another example up here. And I think it was right there. Oh, I love this. She starts out this sentence saying that she loved him, or it mentioned that she loved him, and by the end it is what did it matter. And it kind of gives you a trivialization to this particular love. And yet she loved him. Sometimes, well, often she had not. Oh, what did it matter? So that tells you she didn't really love him, even though she would say she loved him. But she really didn't. What did it matter in the end, whether she loved her husband or not? It's kind of what it said, and that may be part of the repression of marriage in the first place. I think we have a couple of other things here. Oh yeah, why would she have this word escaped in here? When she abandoned herself, a little whispered word escaped her slightly parting lips. That whispered word would be free. And she used the word escaped not just because that word escaped from her mouth, but you have to think that word choice is symbolizing her escaping her wedded vows, her being bound to her husband. It just seems like that word choice just really is perfect for what she's trying to say. And finally, when she is topped out on, here's where it says Louise, by the way, up top here. But when she is on this line, she's talking to her sister. Go away, I'm not making myself ill. No, she was drinking the very elixir of life through that open window. She was not able to drink up what life offered until she had this hope. Once her husband had died, she now has hope. Hey, come on in, I'm making a video. But anyway, once her husband has died, she has now had hope. And I'll talk to you later, right after this.
I'll see you.
Okay. Oh, cool. So she now has hope because she's drinking the elixir of life. Okay, number 3 says, what was the outside window and what does it mean? The outside window, I think it mentions it right here. She could see in the open square before her house the tops of the trees. So one of the things she sees is the tops of the trees. And what was happening with the trees? They were aquiver with new life. The trees are able to have new life, to do what they want to do. Another thing she sees is the breath of rain. The breath of rain shows a new something. The weather is changing and it's refreshing. Her life is changing and it's refreshing. She also sees the notes of a distant song. A distant song is a new song, what she was not hearing already, and it also is refreshing. You can see as she's looking out the window, everything is giving hope. The sparrows were twittering in the eaves. They're doing what they're wanting to do, just like the trees were. And finally, there are the patches of blue sky. Blue sky had that hope. Amongst all the gray of her life, there was blue sky, there was hope out there. So you can really see a difference between her regular life up until she looks out the window and gets a glimpse of what life really can be, what hope she has. And finally, we have the very last question is, why does the author have the main character die? You may remember Brentley Mallard was not dead. They just thought he was dead. He walks through the door. And to everybody's shock, he is alive. Josephine, the sister, has a piercing cry. The friend tries to get between the husband and the wife, of course, died of the heart disease. The joy that kills. The wife, Louise Mallard, has been given a hope, and she was not going to live without that hope. And the irony of the story is she was now looking forward to a long life, and she doesn't have a long life anymore. She has a quick death. But her body was going to prevent her from being repressed by her husband for having to live for someone else. She would rather die for herself, or at least her body is telling her that, rather die for herself than to live for someone else. Well, I hope you've gotten something out of this literary analysis.